So, you've just won a round of Call of Duty Vanguard, right? I bet you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm the absolute bee's knees, baby! Well, I don't want to burst your 13-year-old bubble there, my friend, but you are nothing but an ant in the grand scheme of the first-person shooter genre, because the list that we're talking about today should be considered a checklist for those claiming to be hardcore first-person shooter aficionados. And only once you've beaten every game that we're about to detail here can you truly claim that crown at the top of the body pile mountain. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com with a very tongue-in-cheek list, and these are 9 first-person shooters only air quotes hardcore gamers can play. Number 9, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas. So in an opposite move to that of Call of Duty, 2006's Rainbow Six Vegas is more geared towards the single-player experience, with a campaign revolving around Rainbow operatives being called into Las Vegas to stop a series of terrorist attacks. The gameplay of the Rainbow Six series has always mixed careful and tactical strategizing with a hefty dose of action, but it's in Vegas that the perfect balance finally seemed to have been struck. In other words, you won't be jumping from buildings into clumps of enemies with bullets flying in every direction, but neither will you be able to spend the whole time hanging back to weigh up your options. There's a realistic kind of motion to the game that forces you to be vigilant at the same time as being unafraid to get pulling that trigger, which of course means that it's going to take quite a while to get the hang of. You've got to put a real effort into pushing forward in this game, and perhaps the other shooters you've been playing up until this point aren't the best basis for this new playstyle. Number 8, Unreal Tournament 2004. Moving away from the story-driven sci-fi action of the first Unreal games, the Unreal Tournament series is, as the name suggests, much more orientated towards multiplayer tournaments. Whether playing solo or with others, however, the game modes remain the same: deathmatch, team deathmatch, assault, onslaught, capture the flag, and so on. The first game in the series was released in the same year as Quake 3 Arena, which is largely the same multiplayer-focused frag count experience. Unreal Tournament 2004, however, introduces new weapons, more wide-open areas, and most notably, vehicles into the mix, which is why it just edges Quake out on the difficulty front. And with more elements comes more potential for chaos, more creative ways to get killed, and indeed to kill, and greater all-around stakes in this ultra-violent tournament. Want to turn up the heat even more? Well, just switch on Insta-Gib mode and watch as every single shot from an enemy turns you into a super elastic pile of body meat. Needless to say, the difficulty becomes very much unreal here. Number 7, Serious Sam, The Second Encounter. If you've played any of the games in this Serious Sam series, you'll be very aware of the irony behind the name, in that there's nothing remotely serious about the way that you can machine gun your way through scores of enemies only to stop and reload to see that even more have arrived when you look up. But as simple a premise as it may be, this franchise really takes this form of gameplay and runs with it. In Serious Sam, The Second Encounter, all the stops are pulled out, and the level of challenge suddenly escalates from pretty damn tricky to what the actual hell. This game introduces 7 new enemies and 4 new weapons, which you already know means more combat encounters and that they are going to be much more hectic. The key is to keep moving at all costs, avoid being backed into a corner, and otherwise just keep that fire button held down until the only use for your oversized gun is an oversized club. One level even has you literally bouncing from wall to wall with barely any means of steering yourself. And you know what, don't get me started on those headless kamikazes. It is utter madness. Number 6, CounterStrike Global Offensive. Despite beginning its life as a Half-Life mod, CounterStrike is one of the longest-running and most famous shooter series out there, and the latest of these popular MMOs, CounterStrike Global Offensive, really raises the bar where difficulty is concerned. New or casual players may be confused by this, as while the game seems simple enough at the beginning, the deeper nuances of its intricate mechanics only become clear after many hours of play, and by that point, it'll be obvious just what a learning curve lies ahead of you. Often described as a game that is easy to pick up and play but hard to get truly good at, you'll have to unlearn a lot of what you know about modern FPS games in order to hold your own for any length of time in an online match. From attack strategies to shooting mechanics to even moving around, everything takes a lot more getting used to than what you probably expect. Of course, as is the case for all games with a steep learning curve, finally finding your feet and achieving mastery over Counter-Strike's unique setup is an immensely rewarding feeling for players. So you know what? Keep at it. Number 5, Operation Flashpoint Dragon Rising. First-person shooters aren't all about cackling like a maniac while riddling your enemies with bullets, and neither are they all about crouching behind a waist-high wall and waiting for your injuries to magically go away. As one of the first FPS titles to really break away from these formulae, Operation Flashpoint presented a whole new species of difficulty and immersion within the genre. Put simply, it's not going to hold your hand, and if you want to push ahead with your objective, careful forward planning is an absolute necessity. The game's realistic ballistics mechanics mean that a shot to the head is, just like in real life, an instant death, and getting shot anywhere else can result in you bleeding out if left untreated. Each difficulty level also adds in far more player inconvenience to tighten up the already brutal experience. On the lowest setting, ammo, health, and inventory are all displayed on the UI, but each subsequent difficulty takes one of those things away from you, leaving you with little else to help but the cogs in your own head. Lastly, you can say goodbye to any liberally placed checkpoints. After all, you don't get those in real life, do you? Number 4. Devil Daggers. It's always refreshing to know that some developers still hold a special place in their hearts for the retro games that took the industry to where it is today. Blocky graphics and 8-bit music are classic ways to pay homage to this glorious era of gaming, but let's be real here. What says retro better than absolutely soul-crushing difficulty? Enter Devil Daggers, an obviously Doom-inspired dark fantasy shooter with an additional element of bullet hell, with the bullets being the enemies themselves, naturally. Your goal is to survive as long as possible against endless waves of demons. The longer you last, the more will spawn, and coming into contact with anything results in an instant death. Bullets shoot wildly out of your fingertips, but don't expect that alone to protect you. You're going to want to be on the move constantly, circle strafing and backstepping around your foes, with often only inches separating you and that one fatal touch. Devil Daggers only truly offers one thing, but that one thing is done incredibly well, with enough challenge and replayability to rile up even the hardiest of gamers. Try this one yourself if you think you're hard enough. Number 3. Escape from Tarkov. Realism is something gaming seldom aims to achieve, and even when that is the goal, almost never do developers actually manage to pull it off. And there's a reason for this, and that's that realism makes everything much, much harder, both for the developers to replicate and for players to navigate through. Escape from Tarkov, however, is one such game where the hardships of reality are very deliberately reflected in the gameplay. Now, this game focuses on multiplayer raids, with your objective usually being to reach an extraction point before being shot to oblivion by everyone around you. And there's no silly make-believe going on here. Health doesn't regenerate and wounds require bandages or medicine to heal. Bullets are programmed to go through walls and ricochet off hard surfaces, and dying results in the loss of everything you brought into the raid. And if you want to check your ammo, you can forget about consulting some fancy UI. Your only option is to manually take out the magazine and look for yourself. To the outsider, Escape from Tarkov's gameplay may seem a little too realistic to possibly be fun, but if you're the type who enjoys an authentic, tough-as-nails challenge with minimal gaming liberties, this one is absolutely for you. Number 2. Arma III. Of course, Escape from Tarkov isn't the only FPS game that prefers something a little more visceral than your average celebrity-stuffed cover shooter. The Arma series is specifically designed with realism in mind, to the point where some have categorized the games as military simulators instead of simply first-person shooters. Arma 3 showcases all of the series' best elements in spectacular fashion. With its immersive atmosphere, intricate combat, and open-world locations covering areas of up to 100 square miles, the scale of this game is what may first seem a little daunting to you. But then there's the gameplay itself, which is extremely detailed and demands a lot of time and patience from you to fully get the hang of. Couple this with one-hit kills and minimal margin for error, and many of you will probably find your patience being tested way beyond its limits. While some may be put off by the mouse and keyboard setup, Arma 3 makes full use of the tools you're given to work with. And though mastering it definitely does take time, the payoff at the end is more than worth it for the hardcore FPS gamer. And number 1, Doom Eternal. A lot of famously air quotes hard games nowadays, such as Dark Souls, Cuphead, and The Binding of Isaac, are rather exaggerated by the internet and various gaming journalists. Doom Eternal, however, is one such case where the opposite is true. Attention rarely seems to be drawn to its difficulty more than anything else, but man, oh man, this game can be utterly brutal. The game's 2016 predecessor was challenging enough, with an ingeniously modernized take on the Doom series' classic run-and-gun gameplay. But with new traversal mechanics, new enemies, and a generally more epic big scope, Doom Eternal ramps up everything in a way that seems to scream, well, what were you expecting? Arenas are full to bursting with enemies, and only by pushing forward and engaging them can you maintain a steady supply of ammo and health. At the same time, it's very easy to become overrun, so staying in one place and shooting from a corner is just simply not an option. The recent DLC, The Ancient Gods, turns up this difficulty by a dizzying amount, even on the I'm too young to die or hurt me plenty modes. It is pretty much a given that you'll be seeing that death screen a fair few times. As addictive as Doom Eternal's combat is, there's no denying that it can get way out of control if you haven't mastered the way of the Doomslayer. At least there's the hellish metal soundtrack to keep you feeling suitably bloodthirsty while you respawn again and again and again. And there we go, my friends. Those were 9 first-person shooters only hardcore gamers can play. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself with love and respect, my friend, because you deserve all of the best things in life, all right? I want you to go out there and smash your life goals today. I believe in you, and you need to believe in yourself as well. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.